There are some big changes coming to the LSAT later this year, most importantly the removal of the logic game section after the June LSAT. Starting with the August LSAT, the exam is going to have 2 scored logical reasoning sections and 1 scored reading comp section, which makes the August LSAT a great choice for a couple of reasons, especially in comparison to, say, the June LSAT. Let's say you were targeting the June LSAT, you would have to study logic games, logical reasoning, and reading comp. Yet any of the work you did on logic games would be useless if you were to then retake after that point, say in August, September, October, whatever. And when you consider June versus August, you take either of those exams, you'll still be able to apply at the very beginning of the cycle in September either way. In contrast, let's say you target the August LSAT as your first LSAT attempt. In that case, you're only going to have to study logical reasoning and reading comp. You'll be able to narrow your focus to studying only 2 sections of the LSAT rather than 3, and you'll still be able to apply in September when applications open. Plus, if you need to retake, all the work that you had done on logical reasoning and reading comp will still apply and carry over to any of your retake dates going forward. And you'll probably be a lot better at logical reasoning than you would have if you had to divide your study time between games, reasoning, and reading comp. Now, any study time you devote to logical reasoning will be doubled in value because the games will apply across 2 scored sections of the LSAT rather than only 1. Of course, you could target the April LSAT with logic games, then retake it in June, but of course there's not nearly as much time to prep for the April LSAT as there would be to prep for the August LSAT, and law schools will not care which version of the LSAT you took with logic games or without logic games. It's all the same to them. They just care about that score out of 180, and they never see the breakdown of how you did on each individual LSAT section, nor do they really care because they are not evaluated based on how you do on games versus reasoning versus reading comp. They are only evaluated on that magic score out of 180, which is forwarded to the American Bar Association, which in turn is where U.S. News pulls their data from for the ever-important U.S. News Law School rankings. It's also worth noting that the students who do the best on the LSAT are the ones who put in the time. I typically recommend at least 5 to 6 months of dedicated LSAT prep to achieve your fullest potential on the LSAT, and so trying to cram it in 2 to 3 months to target April or June, it isn't really enough time to reach your fullest potential, and the LSAT score is, of course, the most important factor in the admissions process, so it's well worth putting in the time. Plus, if you target August, you'll have the whole summer to study. Hopefully, your schedule's a bit lighter with work or with school. Hopefully, you'll be able to make the LSAT a major focus over the summer, work on your application essays on the side, and then the second app's open in September, you could send in your applications with your LSAT score, maximizing your odds of getting in and maximizing the odds of getting significant scholarship money. The LSAT's worth the time. It's worth sacrificing your summer if you have to. Maybe you bring some LSAT books to the beach. Maybe you bring them to the park, but at least you won't be spending the time doing logic games. You'll be spending it on reasoning and reading comp instead. A lot of folks are wondering, is logical reasoning going to be harder once they remove the logic game section to balance things out in some way? And the answer is yes and no. LSAT is not going to introduce some radical new bizarre question type into the logical reasoning section, but they are going to make some more subtle shifts in the focus of the section. Reports from students who took logical reasoning experimentals recently indicate that LSAT is adding more formal logic questions into the logical reasoning section, and they're also adding more numerical questions that deal with, for example, numbers versus percentages, absolute versus relative. And so you may want to incorporate more prep in those logical reasoning question types if you're taking the LSAT in August and beyond, because LSAT's still going to want to test those particular concepts. Now, whenever you're taking the LSAT, whether it's with the logic game section or without the logic game section, there are a lot of different ways that I could personally support you in helping you break into the 170s and beyond. At LSAT Unplugged, we have live online classes via Zoom, on-demand video courses, small group coaching, and one-on-one coaching. You can check out the links below the video to find out more and to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. Of course, we'll be shifting focus as well. We're going to remove logic games from our course after the June LSAT and add in more on logical reasoning to account for the change. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.